What's up, my people? Today we are talking all about icebreakers to make virtual meetings less awkward. I'm Bronwyn, Sally, and Benny, and I'm a communication coach. What I do as a coach is bring forward the best in people when the pressure is cranked up all the way to 11. I help people figure out how to stand in their authenticity and deliver a message that is memorable, repeatable, interesting, and that breaks through the static of everyday noise. And what I know, the one thing I was put on this earth to do is to help people shine. You know what? It is always the same, right? The meeting begins, people are on mute, people are off camera. It's that awkward, hideous silence. Or it's people making really painful small talk. Oh, it's the worst. And here's the thing, you guys. Gone are the days where we used to easily gather in groups in a conference room and just kind of shoot the shit and hang out, right? Now we have to manufacture that sense of connection, that sense of energy exchange, but in a virtual environment, because all of our meetings are happening virtually right now and will be for a while, I think. So the question is, how do you create that same feeling of connection when we first walk into a room together? And that's what we're talking about today. And my favorite way to do that is by asking interesting questions. Call them what you want to. They are how you establish the vibe of the meeting you are about to begin. Now, not every meeting is a meeting that needs an icebreaker, right? If you're having a serious conversation about a crisis, I don't think you need an icebreaker question. I think you need to get to the point. I think you need to solve the crisis. But if people are just gathering and it's a new business conversation or it's a status update, a minute or two to ask people question of the day, that's what I call it. I call it question of the day. Having a few of those or one of them in your back pocket ready gets people instantly involved. Okay, so what do I mean by that? What are my favorite questions of the day? Gotta tell you, my absolute favorite question of the day that people are dying to answer is this one. Ready? What was your first live concert you ever attended? I am telling you, that question, people will crawl out of their skin to answer that question. And the thing I love about it is that I will use it to warm up a meeting of just 3 or 4 or 5 people. I've also used it to warm up the chat when I give a talk to over 500 people. It's like the chat just warms right up. People are automatically engaged. And what it does is that it imprints a vibe of playfulness, of humanness, because these virtual meetings, you guys, we forget that there are humans on the other end because it's just a name or it's just a screen. So anything I can do to dial up the humanity in a conversation, I do. And one of the benefits to doing this, PS, is that it's like putting a big deposit in the joint bank account of that relationship. So if things get a little kludgy later on in the conversation, or there's a little conflict, a little tension, a little pressure, you will be forgiven because you have established a connection, an emotional bond with the people in that room because of question of the day. So back to the questions though. My favorite one is, what is the first concert you ever attended? I also love, what was the best gift you ever received as a child? Oh my God, that's a good one. That usually takes people a minute to think of. So I usually go first. And do you want to know what my favorite gift as a child was? It was a giant life-sized stuffed unicorn who I named Eunice, who I am still trying to recapture any way I can. Can you see? This is like a mini Eunice. I don't know if the camera can. But this is like a small version of my favorite gift as a child. It was from Santa and I've never forgotten it. But that question has yielded the most phenomenal answers from people. Things that reveal so much about them. And that's the added bonus of asking interesting questions. You will find that every human being has a backstory. Every human being has something that makes them so special. And if you can connect with that, it's so much easier to connect emotionally during a virtual meeting because you realize there are human beings on the other end of these camera lenses, right? So I love that one. Another one, this is good for kind of North American audiences, but another great question is, what was your first car and is there a story there? People, like, my brother-in-law gave me that one. People will climb out of their skin to answer that question too, right? But you can ask anything. You can ask, if you could go anywhere in the world tomorrow, where would you go? You can ask, what's the big thing you learned during the course of the coronavirus shutdown? There's a million things you can ask. Actually, on my Instagram account, I always have, if you go through my feed, you'll see I have handwritten questions every so often that you can use as well. In fact, you should be following me on Instagram @BronwynSF. Let's talk. Let's talk. Also, drop me a comment. Like, what questions have worked for you? What is your icebreaker strategy for getting on a call? Now, I do want to warn you about something. Like I said, not every call is an icebreaker kind of call, right? I was working with someone recently who said, oh my God, Bronwyn, I did that thing where, I was trying to make this status meeting with this customer less painful. They're so intimidating. They're so harsh. They're so cold. And I tried to do the question of the day and they literally shot me down. They said, no, thank you. It happens. Not everybody wants a question of the day. So what happens? What happens if you introduce question of the day and they're like, no, thank you. No problem. A certain percentage of meetings won't want question of the day, but they're in the very small minority. The vast majority of meetings that you have while you're waiting, those awkward few minutes while you're waiting for people to join, people are only too delighted to answer questions that are interesting, right? Questions that get them going, Another good one I just thought of that I love is, do you remember what your favorite lunchbox was as a child? This is another North American one. I'm sure there are versions of this that you can use in your own geos if you're watching this from around the world. But for me, I had a Scooby-Doo lunchbox that I loved. I had a Sean Cassidy lunchbox. That will tell you how old I am. If you don't even know who Sean Cassidy is, Google him. You're welcome. Anyway, my point is, not all meetings are icebreaker McGee. Some meetings need you to show up and get going. And that's okay. But I would rather you test it out and know that most meetings deeply appreciate it. Not only does it make the meeting more pleasant, it establishes you for having a reputation as someone that knows how to foster connection, as someone who is high on charisma. I don't mean like high on charisma. I mean, on a scale of charisma, you are ranked high, right? It establishes your reputation as someone who knows how to run a meeting and do it fun. The other benefit of starting with an icebreaker question is that you can refer back to them later in the conversation. It's so fun because often there is something that is mentioned at the beginning of the call or the conversation that you can then connect to later. And what it does is it makes the people in the meeting feel special. It makes them feel seen. And boy, if there is one thing I know as a communication coach, it is that the deepest need we have as human beings is to feel seen, is to feel like our humanity is appreciated and understood. So drop a comment. Let me know, what have you tried? What questions have worked for you? I love collecting those questions, and I'm sure everybody else would love to know too. I'd love to know what worked. I'd love to know what didn't work. Let me know. Ultimately, the goal always is in a conversation to foster connection, to make it meaningful, to make it stand out from all the other meetings people go through. If you can create that pocket, that opportunity for connection, your reputation will grow and your brand will be killer. Internally, externally, people will know you for being somebody that knows how to run a meeting. So I hope that was helpful. Hit subscribe, like, and comment. Find me on Instagram @BronwynSF, but if you really want to be in the know, get on my mailing list, bronwyncommunications.com/subscribe. Shine on. We need your light.